So do we start off with apologizing for not like being there for 4 weeks
I
because I
think
was getting married
you
and
should
I
apologize.
yeah,
Yes, you should apologize.
getting married and I went on my honeymoon, but I think that's understandable.
Good content. We gave you good content.
Yeah, I actually did. Like, they had some nice German stuff. So hi folks, welcome to episode 11 of the F1 Grid View. We'll be reviewing the Barcelona Grand Prix that happened yesterday at the Circuit de Catalunya. Mihika, first thoughts. What do you think of the race?
Very eventful.
Yeah,
Loved it.
I did too. I really had a lot of fun. Started off really well with Kevin Magnussen and Hamilton getting into this whole thing, and Hamilton already
Yeah.
giving up from everything, saying that I don't want to continue, just let's just save the engine and all that. And then from there going on, there were some really interesting overtakes and things happening. But then in the end, in the middle, it got a little boring for me when you could just see Charles going off and everything happening behind him, but Charles being in the distance, not anybody able to catch up.
Yeah.
And then it just snap and
I
change.
think around like 20-25 minutes ish was very boring.
Yeah.
But like other than that, everything was so entertaining. Like either there are some overtakes happening
Right.
or Charles DNF or Hamilton going from like P19 to P4
Yep.
over the, and I honestly didn't think he would make it into the points also.
He didn't
At
think
that
he would
point.
make it into points.
Yeah. But like he did manage to get 5th position, which was like really good.
Yeah. Yeah. He had a very strong race. The Mercedes car looked really strong. Russell really was. He's been fantastic to say the least. So Mercedes this year, Mr.
Yeah.
Consistent, getting into the top 5, getting points in every single race. He's been really good. Getting to the winner. What did you have to say about the team orders already in race in not even in the 6th race we have team orders and Perez has to give up his position for Max.
I'm really feeling bad for Perez. Like
Yeah.
I agree that Max is the leader. Max is the one who will be competing for championship and everything.
Not really as yet. There was not that big a gap between Checo and Max at this point. How do you suggest who's your number 1 driver?
Yeah, there wasn't, but like Red Bull has always like since the past few years, Red Bull has been favoring him.
I've been their golden boy for 4-5 years, so there's obviously they are gonna go ahead and prefer him, but
Exactly.
yeah.
I mean, I don't think they should have done that so early in the season, but they did end up doing that.
Correct.
Like I feel Perez had a really good chance of winning the race if they wouldn't have, made them change places.
Yeah, he was definitely winning. He was on track to win the race.
Exactly.
But team orders so early on in the season is just going to leave a sour taste in Perez's head, and obviously it doesn't reflect well with the team also. And Perez saying he needs to have a talk after the race. Yeah, that's not good at all.
Yeah.
Continuing, let's see how everybody did in qualifying. So it started with Charles on pole. Charles has had a fantastic run this year. He's getting poles left, right, and center. Not converting a majority of them, but yeah, still he's been fabulous. So here we have.
Max would have gotten the pole, but like the last lap, he had some issues, right?
Correct.
So that would have been nice to see him on pole as well.
That's true. His power, his Red Bull powertrains unit failed him again, which is becoming a very repetitive thing. Coming back again in the race, we will see him have issues with his DRS. So yeah, Charles finishing on pole, Max finishing behind him, Carlos at P3. We have Russell in the top 5 with Perez and Lewis. And Lewis's best friend Valtteri is just sticking right behind him wherever he is. In an Alpha, he is put it to P7. In an Haas, Kevin is in P8. Daniel is on P9. And Mick Schumacher makes his first Q3 appearance, finishing P10. Yeah, something you really stood out for you in qualifying, or something you really loved?
Yeah, I mean, Mick coming to the Q3 was what costed Lando his Q3, right?
Correct. Lando had his track time deleted.
Yeah.
Because for exceeding track limits, he did have his lap time deleted. Yes. So that put Mick in the top 10. Daniel didn't even come out from the pit lane to try another lap. He was very happy. He thought he couldn't improve more, and they didn't want to risk another set of tires. So Daniel didn't even come out for a third and final lap.
Yeah.
Valtteri was really good with his lap. That was a fantastic job he did. Not that big a gap to the leaders ahead. 7, 8 tenths. That's it. Yeah, all in all, a very solid qualifying with Charles. With Charles finishing on pole and Carlos Sainz Senior handing him the award and being an awkward end of the prize distribution or the qualifying ceremony, handing him the wheel with that was kind of awkward. Like you could see the pain in his face. I'm sure he really wanted his son to be on pole for this race at home.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, everyone wants to see Carlos get a win for Ferrari, right?
That's true.
Like, even if it starts with a pole position, it is pretty different from what we've been seeing like in the past 6 races. It's either Max or Charles.
Yeah, it is. But like, what do you think? Like, okay, going to the race results. We'll continue this with Charles first. Carlos did finish P4, but he had a bad spin at turn 4. He went into the gravel. He got back. Lost a couple of places, and then fought himself back. That's happening quite frequently. I don't know if it's just too much pressure getting to him. This P4 were the wins, but him being from this area, knowing these tracks very well, being a local boy, I'm sure he would know how these wins affect the car. Max also not to just say it was his fault. Max also did go into the gravel in the next lap itself, and Max is not somebody who's known to be really good with his limits. So yeah, so not putting too much out there on Carlos, but he has definitely made some mistakes the past few races. And the pressure of having a race-winning car and not delivering clearly is showing on the Spaniard, I feel.
Definitely. And like we've in the beginning at least, Charles and Carlos had the similar car. Like
correct.
Over the season also, Charles has been getting the pole position, getting the win.
Yep.
But Carlos still hasn't gotten the win, which
correct.
At this point, if he has been in Ferrari for the second year, and at this point, I mean, any Ferrari fan would like to see Carlos on the podium.
Definitely, not just Ferrari fans. There are a lot of Carlos fans as well who just support other teams. He has a lot of love from the McLaren fans as well. So yeah, and it's Monaco next week. We're already counting Charles to crash into the walls. So maybe you have Carlos finishing on the top step of the board.
I was counting on Charles crashing, but like he's crashed this week as well. I don't think he can afford to crash next week as well.
He can't. The championship is getting really heated. He was running away with it first in the couple of races, and then Max has just crawled out of nowhere and just pulled him back with 3 consecutive wins in a row. So yeah bravo. Okay, there is no Max bias, but there is. Come on, it's obvious. Getting into the race results, that is very interesting. The Red Bull 1 and 2 with team orders, with Perez definitely being the quicker car, stopping to get the fastest lap, not agreeing with the strategy that the team set up on him, or the team not agreeing on the strategy that they had set out to, which was Perez always going to be finishing ahead of Max, but then he is that golden boy. He needs the points. So Perez happy to play the team game, but finishing P2, he did seem disappointed in the pen when he was giving the interviews, when he was talking to everybody. But yeah, that's how it is.
I mean, anyone would be disappointed, right? Like, you can't expect to be stolen from the first position and be all happy and merry.
Yeah, but then there are too many things that affected that decision also, because Verstappen had a bad car. His DRS didn't work. He was not as quick as Perez. Perez fought through Russell and the midfield to get to the top of P1, and just letting it go for Max seemed a little wrong. It was hilarious just watching Max go ahead and ham the DRS button, just or pedal it up and seeing if it worked, if it didn't work, the DRS flap not just turning on, and then then him cursing the team, saying on a joke, you can't even get the DRS right. Like, I mean, Adrian Newey's done a lot of wonderful thing for Max to be very to be very grateful for, and I don't think they need to layer how a crappy job they're doing with the DRS this race.
I think the only thing that helped Max after the DRS issue was Charles's DNF, because otherwise I don't think Max
There was
would
no
have.
way. There was no way if Charles didn't DNF, he was winning this race. There was no chance. Somebody I really was impressed and loved was Russell. He had a fantastic race, finishing P3.
Leading at one point.
He was leading at one point. He had a really strong race. The Mercedes upgrades have done well. They're not porpoising anymore. They've understood why they were porpoising and they managed to stop it. So that's pretty good for them. Yeah, all in all, a very strong race for both the Mercedes.
I'm really liking how Mercedes is, coming up to the level of at least Red Bull and Ferrari, because now it won't just stay a two-way championship. It will now turn into Ferrari versus Red Bull versus Mercedes, which will be good, because like in the past, say 6 races, we've seen either Ferrari or Red Bull. But we do need something else on top, otherwise it's going to be the same like Hammer bot or Verham bot. It's the same.
Yep, I get that. Hamilton had a real scare in the ending of the laps. During to the end of the race, I was very sure he was not going to finish. The DNF looked on the cards, but he did manage it well and did let Sainz go through to P4, and he settled with this P5, and his good friend Bottas right behind him again in P6. So they're not leaving each other. It was very cute. I don't know if you saw the interview where he asked if the reporter asked him if he would be interested in buying Bottas's artwork in the stream where he was showing off his speeches. And Hamilton was very surprised Bottas was selling those as NFTs and stuff, and he definitely looked interested in buying one.
I mean, you miss your teammate, don't you?
Yep, Alpine had a really strong race. Like, I thought they were fantastic. Ocon coming ahead in the start, overtaking everybody. He did really well. Alonso started P17, took a power unit penalty, started at the back of the race at P20, and then made up 11 spots to finish P9. That Alpine car is something on this track. And at a home race, Alonso did a fantastic job.
Of course. Both of them did a brilliant job, and I've been seeing Ocon has been performing really well over the past few races, and it's just really like nice.
He's been doing really well.
Yeah. What did you think of the 2 green Red Bulls?
They looked pretty promising when they came out. I was like, if it is already a 3-way race, can we add another Red Bull and make it a 4-way race with Aston Martin also in it? But very early on, they both got disqualified in Q1 of the quali, and I was like, okay, this is not what they had in mind. But Vettel had a good race. I thought Vettel was really good. His battle with Alonso was fantastic. Good, just took everybody back to the 2012s, 2013s, and that was a lot of fun. But that car didn't really have a lot to put up and didn't have a lot of pace. And yeah, it just didn't work out for them. The two McLarens. Norris was sick. Norris was unwell. Started P11, put up a fantastic fight. Just completely out of energy by the end. He wouldn't even talk to his race engineer in the cool down lap because he didn't have that strength. He finished P8, and you had Ricciardo finishing P12. Very off race. He didn't know how to sum it up himself. He just seemed very frustrated with it, and so that was that for Ricciardo. Coming to Gasly and Tsunoda. Gasly had a very mediocre race. He didn't have a lot of time with quali. He sat out. His car was not set up properly and had a lot of issues with it. Yuki had a good race. Yuki finished P10. Got this point. Yuki's been having good races.
good races.
He's been outshining Gasly this year, which is pretty surprising. But the AlphaTauri does not look as good a car as it did last year. So yeah, but Yuki's been doing pretty well. I'm very impressed with the way Yuki's carried himself.
Yeah, same.
Schumacher started P10, was in the points, and then you suddenly just hope that he gets 1 point. Everybody's just waiting for Mick to get his first points, and then towards the end of the race, you just see him slipping down and just breaks everybody's heart. I feel at this.
It's sad.
Yeah, the Williams are very nothing to write about them. They were just, yeah, you could just write them off. There was nothing there with them. Albon had some major tire issues. He pit 4 times. So that's something they have to figure before Monaco, because you don't have a lot of time to turn it around. But being 2 laps down, pitting 4 times is definitely not fun. And you have Zhou and Leclerc who both were out of the race. Who DNF.
Yeah, both Ferrari engines.
Both Ferrari engines. I was really scared because at that point when Zhou DNF'd, I think Bottas was still P4. And there was a high chance he could finish P4 or even on the podium at that point. And I was just worried that the doubts creep in when your teammate is already gone off. And yeah, that does affect. Yeah. Going ahead to our next slide. Here we have points if they were calculated on basis of qualification quali. If somebody finished P1 in quali, he got 25 points as he did in the race. So you see Charles having a great time in quali, being on top with 136, Max 106 again, Perez being 80, and Carlos and Lewis. Lewis doesn't look like he's finishing very high up, but he still managed to get himself to the 5th place. So that does mean he's having pretty strong qualies. But George Russell is in 8th, and he's having very strong races because he is finishing in the top 5. So that's something that George has figured out in his race pace, which Lewis still hasn't been able to. So yeah, that's very well done. A very surprising name to miss out on the top 10 is Daniel Ricciardo not having a great time at all this year.
But he's not even in the top 10 for race results.
Yeah, but that car is not like it can't be there because Lando has put it up to P7. So he's really struggling. And Bottas is really, really impressive. He's been 32 in an Alfa Romeo, and
it's like he's just not shifted from Mercedes.
Yeah, he's doing really, really well. And he seems a lot happier. You see him so much calmer, so composed, so happy to be a team leader as such. So that's really good. It's really, really good on his part. Moving on to our next slide with the pit stops. Everybody else going with a 3-stopper strategy. Most of the teams starting on softs. I think only Lewis was the one who started on medium, but after his first lap incident, he too shifted to softs. And so just it was so hot. The track temperature reached up to 50s. It was really difficult for them to cool down the engines, cool down the tires. So you couldn't push as much as hard as also. So yeah, I think I really like these wet races or these really hot races where you have like a lot of things depend on how you use the tires, how you push the tires. So I think I had a really, really fun time just because of the strategies that were being used and how they were working around those. So yeah, I thought that was pretty fun. Anything that stood out for you except Albon pitting 4 times?
No, going into the race, people were thinking it could be a 1-stopper or a 2-stopper. Yep. But then over time, everyone realized that the track was very hot, and which is why the tires were acting out.
Correct.
And I feel like more or less, other than Lewis's, like you mentioned, the Lewis is starting on mediums. Other than that, most of the teams did pretty well with the tire management. That's true. People did. They did handle themselves really well. There weren't any burnouts of the tires or something like that, which is very common in a hot race. Sorry? Kevin and Bottas had a 2-stopper. Yep. Bottas did manage to give a very long stint with his medium tires, so that worked out very well for them. Ferrari had the quickest pit stop, and they beat the record for the
quickest pit stop in the whole season with Charles. It was a 2.43 second pit stop, which is the quickest one this season. So kudos on them, but then Charles DNFing didn't help them pretty much. So yeah, moving on then.
Okay, I feel he'll figure it out over the season.
Yeah, not in Monaco, but he will.
Yeah.
So this is a very interesting stat that we found. This is basically the combination of how much the first driver and the second driver is getting the points. So if you see Red Bull, you have Max Verstappen, who's got 110 points as compared to an 85 of Perez, which is very close. Which is why I said it was not decided that Max was the number one driver in this season as yet, because he didn't need those 25 points because they were basically on equal footing as before this race. So like you see, Max is finished on 110, Perez has 85, so that's 77% of the team points are with Red Bull. Carlos also, after not having that great a season, still has managed to put 62% of the has not that behind on points. A very interesting stat is the Mercedes number one driver. That is George Russell, not Lewis Hamilton.
I mean, if last year you would have told anyone that George is performing better, no one would have believed you.
Yeah, definitely not. It's 62%. Alpha Tauri has Alpha Tauri also. The number one driver is Yuki, not Pierre, with 54% of the points. McLaren, which is a very obvious one because how Lando is outperforming Daniel. McLaren having 28% of the points is very clearly out there. Similarly with Alpine and Alfa Romeo too, Ocon and Bottas have been doing really well, better than Alonso and better than Zhou. So yeah, you see that happening, which is very okay. Something that where you said just reminded me where if you ask somebody last year, nobody would say that Russell was outshining Lewis. It just took him back to 2014 where you had this young boy Daniel Ricciardo just beating the four-time world champion Sebastian Vettel race after race in a car that was a world champion till then, and he came to that team thinking he could be the next world champion here. I am sure Russell also came to Mercedes thinking he could be a world champion here, with Mercedes winning 7 and almost getting the 8th also. So there are some parallels there with Ricardo and Russell there coming to championship winning teams, outshining the winners. So yeah, I
You
just
see
thought
that
of
over
that.
time, depending on how he performs.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, Hamilton had a fantastic comeback, contrary to whatever he thought he couldn't do. Wanting to save the engine. That was something I was really disappointed with because he's not somebody who comes across like he will give up. He's always fighting till the end. There was not technically
Yeah.
giving up, but maybe he was thinking smartly because he knew how close the season got last year. So maybe he wanted to save some of his engines if he thought he was so far behind, which he was. Like you look at them, you look at everybody else, and you look where Hamilton is at lap 3. He is far, far, far behind, and it's not something you can do it in a quick. But I'm sure he knows if one safety car and you're all bunched up again, and it's all okay then.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, he had a fantastic race. Lap 62 was where he got ahead of Sainz, but then with his overheating of the car and problems, he did have to get back to So yeah, going ahead to our next one, George Russell has been freaking amazing this year. Has a podium finish, has led the race, top 5 finish. He's got all the laps done. He's not DNF, and he's the lead team. He's leading his teammates. So yeah, he's had a fantastic year.
Yeah. I just I'm realizing right now how in the beginning everyone's, from like the first race, everyone was like, I think Mercedes is still regretting changing Bottas and Russell. And
Yep.
I feel he's living up to the expectations with the car
He
he
has living up to the expectations and more, I feel.
Yeah, and more than that, because if you go to see Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion who's been in that car since so long,
Yeah.
still hasn't been able to come to the level that he is.
Yeah, for sure. So he's done pretty
I
well.
think Mercedes got a took a good bet with Russell.
Definitely. Russell's been waiting in the wings for too long at Williams also. So it was high time he got this opportunity. And it was good time for Mercedes also to give and to breathe this
Yeah,
new generation in. You can't have somebody new coming totally after and not being able to fill Lewis's shoes. So yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Yeah, that's 250 podiums for Mercedes this week. All these stats from our friend from Stats F1 Stats Guru. 250 podiums, which is the highest right now that we have since 2010. Sorry, not the highest we have forever, because you have McLaren and Ferrari, who's these giants of the sport. But since 2010, you have Mercedes of 250, and the Michael Schumacher one still stands out for me because how important it was after his switch from Ferrari and 3 hard years at Mercedes. Nico's been very strong. So is Valtteri. And Lewis is on another level. And I'm sure George is just starting up and he's going to get there.
Yeah, I think he has more to contribute to this over the coming
Years
season.
and years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Team standings.
I
That looks
am
really interesting.
I'm happy with like Red Bull going on top because it's a change. We needed
Yeah.
a change.
Yeah. Ferrari has been very dominant this season, but with Charles not finishing his race and and Red Bull having a 1-2, I don't think it could have got any better for Red Bull. Mercedes is also picking up. The 120 is not very far behind. Similarly, McLaren technically just on one driver is getting up with 50, and Alpha also is banking on one driver. Yeah, the midfield looks pretty even. McLaren, Alfa Romeo, and Alpine don't have much separating them, but you clearly know McLaren is a step above, but they haven't proved anything this year. So hopefully they do have something in the bag. And Aston Martin is not at number 19 with the personnel and with the drivers. So I'm sure they'll be looking to get up to maybe a 5 or 6 or 7, not languishing down in ninth at this point.
For sure. I mean, I think the gap is anyway going to increase next week for Red Bull and Ferrari, right?
Of course. Obviously.
I mean, that'll be nice. The
The
trend
hate
has
we're
to
going to
come.
get from Ferrari fans is going to be unreal this week.
It's okay.
Yeah, so we'll just check where the drivers are after the end of the Barcelona Grand Prix. As we said, Max has taken the first position from Charles. It's still just a quarter of the season. We don't know which way things are going to go, but it's not that big a lead. But it's great to have Verstappen back at the top. And if Charles did take this 25 points, the lead would have been very high for Max to catch up. And I still don't see this as a two-way fight. I still think Perez, Russell, maybe even Hamilton and Sainz are still in this.
Of course. It's not like it has been blocked out at this point. And like at the rate that Mercedes is improving,
Yeah.
like how they've gone from like a bad car to, a decent car in six races.
Correct.
With the coming few races, I don't think they are going to have an issue to reach the championship car level.
Definitely. Something that really stands out for me is Kevin Magnussen, who was not in this picture even 3 months back, but is at P10 with not just like 5 points or 6 points, but that's 15 points. That's not something Haas had in their wildest dreams at the last year. In a Haas, exactly. So that and Bottas are two people who really impressed me. In an Alfa Romeo getting 38 points, I'm sure was not a very easy job, but he's out driving that car and he's doing really well.
What I feel sad is that earlier we used to see Norris as one of the, like with McLaren, we were seeing Norris to be up, not in P7, P6,
correct,
right?
But that car isn't as great as such this year.
Exactly. It's so sad to see Norris in a McLaren, which is not that great, especially after he signed such a long contract.
Yeah, but I'm sure they will work towards giving him a better car. And he had a fantastic race last year in Monaco, so we do expect good things from him.
Let's hope it works out this week.
Yes. Getting to our favorite portion of the segment, We'll start from the bottom again. If you've joined us for the first time, this is where we rate the drivers from 1 to 10, depending on how they did all weekend. That includes FP1, FP2, FP3, qualifying, and the race. So yeah, we'll start from the bottom as we usually do. It's a sad name to see right at the bottom is Charles, but what do you think, Mihika?
He had a good weekend other than the race.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give him like an 8.5 because it wasn't his fault.
Correct.
So an 8.5.
Yeah, I would still say 7. He had a great race, but it's not his fault. But the car reliability is still an issue. So 7.
Yeah, but then that's Ferrari's issue. He couldn't have done anything.
Yeah, so but then when we give Sergio a 10, that is Red Bull's beautiful car. That is Newey's designs. We can't, like, I think I will count them as a whole package, and I think I will give Charles a 7. Joe had a mediocre qualifying, not anything from nothing much to contribute. I think a 6, a 4, 5 is, I think I will be where it'll be at. Alex did have an okayish qualifying. The wheels were really not up to the mark, or there was something wrong with the car, so then that didn't work out for him. So
in the hair this time.
Yeah, so a 6 for him. Kevin had a fantastic quali. He had a really good quali, but an incident with Lewis at the first this thing, and that resulted in him damaging his car more also and falling 9 places. Yeah, I think a 6.5, 7, 7.5 is somewhere we can settle with Kevin. Latifi, mediocre race. Stroll also mediocre race. A 4, 5 is where we think they should be at.
Schumacher had a good quali, but not a good race.
Yeah.
So 6.57.
Yep, I think so. Gasly was having issues with his car all weekend long. Not that he has been doing pretty well this season anyway, but yeah, a very mediocre 5, 6 for Gasly as well. Ricardo had a good quali. He did qualify P8. He qualified ahead of his teammate. He didn't do well in the race particularly. I think a 6 just for his quali performances.
I think 6 from me as well.
Yeah.
Vettel, I really like the overtaking with Alonso. And he had a decent quali, but a better race, I would say. So
yeah, he started P16, ended up P11. 7, yeah, 7.5 does work. Yuki had a good race, I think. He didn't have a great quali. Similarly, like Vettel, a 7, 7.5 would work. Alonso was my driver of the day, not Lewis, because Lewis did get into a tangle. Alonso started P20 and finished P9. But of course, you could argue that Lewis was quicker and would have finished on the podium. But Alonso was my driver of the day, and for that, I think he gets a 9 because I think he drove the wheels of that car and just overtake.
I think an 8.5 from me.
Yeah, I think that's agreeable. So we can set it up at an 8.5. Lando, I mean, I'm not saying it to his credit, but he did have he had health issues. He was not feeling great. You saw it in the driver's parade. He was out of energy, but he started P11, got himself into the points, finished P8. I think a 7.5, 8 is what I think.
Yeah,
we can
that's
give it to
a good enough score.
Yeah. Esteban Ocon,
weekend, I would say.
Yeah.
So 7.5.
7.5, very solid weekend. Valtteri also had a very solid weekend, qualified fantastically at P7, finished P6, 8, 8.5. Also for the car he's been driving and what he's been showing. Mercedes, Lewis had a great weekend, I felt. Mercedes package that they brought, just the upgraded package they brought to the Circuit de Catalunya did work out well for them. And I think an 8. And for the race, if he didn't get into the tangle with Magnussen, he could have finished in the podium, and that would be a 9, 9.5, I feel. But I think a solid 8. Carlos started P3, lost 1 place to P4. What do you think?
I think 6.57 because I feel he could have done a little better.
Yeah, we've seen what Charles does in that car. So if you're talking about the car also, he could do more probably.
Definitely. And like he could have gotten on the podium. I agree with the going into the gravel part is another thing. But I think he could have gotten himself a little better.
That's true.
I mean, the Mercedes issues worked on in his favor, because otherwise he would have still gone to P5. That would have been a little more worse for him.
Yeah.
George
had a fantastic race. Started P4, ended up P3. Good overtaking, good management of tires, good skills.
The race for a while.
Yeah. I think an 8.5.
8.5, yes.
Perez.
I feel so bad for him. So I think 8.59.
Yep.
Because he did have a good race otherwise.
That's true.
Max will get an 8.5. Because he told Perez to go. Let him go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. Being a Max fan also, I think it was Checo's chance to take this win. So,
exactly.
Yeah, Max gets a 9, I feel. So that was the last bit of our podcast, but we do have a little small preview for the Monaco Grand Prix. What do you think, Mihika? How is it going? What do you expect?
So first of all, there are chances of rain, so that'll be a little more exciting for the circuit, because like other than all the jazz and pop and all of that's happening at the circuit,
there is nothing much to it.
That great.
Yep, there is no overtaking in general, so there are a lot of
rain. If it comes, it'll be a nice race to watch.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'll be very boring, very not so fun.
Correct. So that's true.
I'm excited for that, and Charles DNF.
Okay, let's put in a bet before we close this podcast.
You're gonna like cancel out us.
Yeah, no, just let's put in a bet. So if you see, I'm gonna stop sharing my background for a bit. So if you can see, the time right now is 12 o'clock on the 24th of May. We don't know what is going to happen in the race. So if you are saying Charles is going to crash or no?
I don't think he will.
Okay. So I don't think he will too, but just for the sake of the bet, let's just put it out there. Okay. I think Charles will crash then, and you think Charles won't. So if I win, we go to any place which has some public on the main road, on the street, and we carry a paper that says, because I say Charles will crash, I'll say I'm sorry, Charles, and if you win, and you can say Harsh told me so. Maybe I think that's fair.
Sure,
that works. It's an A4 size sheet or it's a board, and there have to be at least 10 people in the picture, in the background.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we will get back on 29th May.
Yeah, no, I'll give you 3 days. I'll give you 3 days to do this photo op also. So this can be on our social media pages.
One second. I don't need the time. You need it. Charles is not going to DNF.
Charles might. It's gonna rain. Like I said.
I mean, he did crash Niki Laura's car.
Yeah, so he's done one for this year, but let's just make it interesting. Okay, so just to wrap it up, we had a fantastic race. Some team orders we didn't agree with, and we have a very interesting race coming up in Monaco. To say it again, I feel Charles will crash. Mihika says Charles won't crash. If I win, I lose the bet, and I have to say I'm sorry, Charles. If Mihika loses, she says Harsh was right. So yeah, wish us luck, and we'll see you next week after the end of the Monaco Grand Prix. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Mihika.